Yeah, before we bring in Aditi, guys, I want to remind everybody that summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are out getting sunburned at the beach. And I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it super fresh with daily promotions and fun ways to bet. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to get started. We have Aditi.
By the way, Chase the Water not in the Columbus lineup today. Keep an eye on that. Hi, Aditi. How you doing?
It's been forever. I'm looking at you guys, and it just feels like it's been so long since I've seen you.
Where you been?
Everybody looks good. Where have I been?
Yeah.
I'm always here. It's when Steve decides to call me.
Yeah, I mean, Steve's a slacker.
I guess you were hurting for guests today, huh?
Yeah.
Is that how that went down?
And by the way,
bad job out of you, Steve.
Now I can't trust you, Aditi, because you just said we all look good. I don't look good. I look terrible. I'm super heavy right now, and I look terrible. So
I mean, a little scruffy. A little. Have you decided to stop shaving? Does it make you feel a little tougher?
Damn!
I don't know. I don't mean that.
I can't say nothing because I look scruffy too.
I just got a fresh lineup yesterday,
I don't know
Didi.
what the point of scruffing.
I knew you was coming on. I had to make sure my lineup was straight.
Here's the reality. I'm going to share the reality with you because I keep it real. Here's the deal. So for 4 months, my family and I were living in a different house because we were having work done on our house.
Oh,
right?
Well, that's exciting.
It was a while ago,
right?
but yeah, it was very exciting. And we moved back into our house, I want to say in February or March. And somewhere in that transition, I lost my electric razor, right? I don't know what happened.
Okay.
You lose things when you move. So my wife bought me a new one like 2 months ago, but I haven't even taken it out of the box yet because I kept thinking I was going to find the old one and blah, blah, blah. Sure. So now I don't shave anymore at home. What I do is, usually once a week, I go see my friend Jen, who cuts my hair, and once a week she gets me in and she gives me a shave.
Why can't I don't understand? You're not taking the new one out of the box because you're hoping to return it, or it's just laziness to have to learn how to use a new one?
Okay, so originally it was because I thought I'd find the new one.
Okay.
Now, I guess it's just lazy. I don't know if it's even lazy. I'm certainly not. I may be fat, but I'm not lazy. I am busy nonstop, like with all kinds of crazy shit that I'm involved with now. It's just nuts. I don't have a minute to breathe. But I guess I would have to blame laziness on this one particular issue. I just haven't taken it out of the box. It's stupid. But I'd rather just go to my friend and let her shave my face. I don't really like shaving.
Well, Aditi.
And once a week. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
So my excuse is I'm just bumming it, I just...
Yeah. Tyvus got hair replacement, though.
He got what?
Hair replacement.
Sour. It hasn't grown in yet. It hasn't grown in yet.
Plugs? Seriously?
Listen, I had to drop the hairline. You see, like I had to drop the hairline. So like you can't see it, it's a little shadow, but right up in here. Right up in here. Look, get it, Steve.
Up in
right
here.
up in here.
Up in here.
Get out.
You gonna come back, you gonna be like, is that Denzel Washington? And I'm gonna be like, yes.
I have to be honest though. I don't know that I've ever seen you without a hat.
Yeah,
I don't know that
it's a very rare thing. Even when I pass away, I'm gonna have them bury me with a hat on. Yeah,
that's how you're gonna do it. So if you're always wearing a hat, why bother with the hair plugs?
The thing is, I do Big Ten, so like you can't wear a hat on the Big Ten. Yeah. So to make myself feel good, presentable, I decided to get this hairline thing done. So yeah, we'll see. I'm excited.
You know what? I have to tell you, I so appreciate a man who has a piece of vanity. Because as a woman on television, I feel as if I constantly have this sense, and I won't name names, look at that dude. He can get old, he can have white hairs, he can put on weight, and it doesn't make a difference. But if it's us, well, we've got to be on top of all of that. So, having said that,
that is very true and very unfair in our business. Men could get away with looking like absolute crap and women generally can't get away with that. I mean, it's unfair.
Well, I tried, Aditi. I tried. I went to the barbershop yesterday. I don't know about these cats. I went to the barbershop. I had to be ready for the moment because you never know who's watching.
I mean, you're looking a little scruffy in the beard too, Earl.
You definitely can trim you got yours trying to be like the last Karate Kid.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, doing your thing. No, you got to shade that down.
To some Browns talk.
Yes.
To some Browns talk. Aditi, we are what, 12 days before everybody's in camp. Who do you think will win the Cleveland Browns quarterback battle and why?
Dang.
Let's just go right there, right?
Yeah.
Let's just jump right to it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a 4-man race. It's a Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett race to me. Shedeur Sanders still has a lot of growing up to do, a lot of developing to do, a lot of learning to do. And I would say the same for Dillon Gabriel. For as much as he's shown, he still has to show that he can overcome his size. And I think that's sort of like a magical little thing, especially on this level, guys that can do it and those that have still struggled to do that. So this is about Joe Flacco, the grizzled veteran who knows what he's doing, who can still make all the throws, and Kenny Pickett, the guy who's getting a real opportunity here. And the truth is, we didn't get to see much of Joe in the spring, and that was obviously by design because Kevin Stefanski and his staff needed to see what they had in these rookies and in Pickett. But I would expect to see Joe get more of a chance now because if he is the guy that's going to win this job, he needs to be able to show everybody that he can win this job, and he needs to convince his teammates that he's the guy to win this job. And if Kenny's going to win the job, he's got to beat out Joe, not these other two kids, frankly. Young men. Sorry. Is that rude? I don't mean to be rude. It's just the older that I get, the more like kids they seem.
I know. I say it too. I don't think it's rude.
Aditi,
I don't mean any disrespect. Mr. Sanders, Mr. Gabriel. Go back to my Wall Street Journal days when everybody was a Mr. Sorry.
Aditi, when you look at these quarterbacks, so you say it's a two-man race between Joe and Kenny. My question is, for the Browns, they're not going to go past this season with probably Joe or Kenny because if Kenny has a great season, they won't probably be able to pay him fair. And if that's the case, why not play the two young guys to see what you have?
Because you'll be completely destroyed. Neither is ready. They're just not ready. You know, there are certain rookies that are drafted and they are ready for the National Football League. These guys just aren't. Like, they just aren't. Sorry. For whatever glowing reports you heard about football in shorts against the 4th team or the 5th team or a group of guys who unfortunately are not going to make the team come September, the reality is, why would you go out there and how could you do that to the rest of the team and say we're not interested in winning? Have you looked at the schedule and the way that the schedule is starting? The Browns have an obligation to not only their fans, but to the players on that team to do everything they can to win games. And you've got a much better chance to do that with either Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett than you do with these two young rookies who neither of whom is Joe Burrow, drafted in the first round and expected to step in and immediately be the face of the franchise.
I agree with you, Aditi, but I mean, listen, I know you're a big fan of Kenny Pickett, and maybe you'll be proven right. And I know there's a lot of other people, maybe not a lot of other people, but there are other people in Cleveland who think Pickett's, has a good chance to be the starter. I've never seen it from this guy. I know you know him personally. Just watch. I can only judge by watching him play. I've never seen a guy. To be fair, he hasn't played enough, I guess, but I don't see a guy that's going to be a good quarterback in the league. I think his ceiling is very limited. I think if they really want to win, I don't think they're going to win no matter who they start. But if they really want to win, I think Joe Flacco's the answer, most likely.
And that may ultimately be it. And let me say this, okay?
Yeah.
I really, really, really like Kenny Pickett as a human being, just like I really, really, really like Joe Flacco as a human being. These are two guys that I know very well. Flacco I've known for 15 years, basically, at this point. But the thing about Kenny Pickett that gets me so riled up is that we as sports fans don't often look at the context or the entirety of a situation. And I just feel this enormous sense of injustice when people talk about Kenny Pickett. he was perhaps overdrafted where he was drafted. It was a horrible year for quarterbacks, okay? He comes into a situation in Pittsburgh where literally nothing was set up for him to succeed. He spent all of training camp as the number 3 quarterback, never, ever, ever taking a rep with the first team. The Steelers' offensive coordinator was a man who was completely overmatched, had absolutely no business being a coordinator in the National Football League. Before he had been hired as the quarterbacks coach of the Steelers, he'd had 6 jobs in 7 years. All of a sudden, he gets promoted up to offensive coordinator. He runs the most dysfunctional, predictable offense that there is. He takes no input from anybody. The offensive line was horrible. There was no run game. And the Steelers had some recalcitrant wide receivers who never showed up to meetings, who wouldn't block on run plays, who were never penalized for bad behavior. Meanwhile, amidst all of this, all of a sudden, at the start of the season, Kenny Pickett becomes the second string quarterback with no explanation. And then a few games into the season, in the middle of a game, still having never, ever, ever repped with the ones, he gets thrown in at halftime. Not because Mitch Trubisky was hurt, but just because and on a whim. And despite all of this, he did engineer some comeback wins. He did show some surprising athleticism. He did show poise. And it just was a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. And I could keep going.
Yeah.
About what he was promised
Yes.
when Matt Canada was finally let go and when Arthur Smith was brought in, and then having that completely yanked out from under him. So when I say I'm a fan of Kenny Pickett's and when I talk about Kenny Pickett, what I really mean is, can we just give him a chance before we write him off? Can we at least let him be in a building with a functional offensive staff where a coordinator, a head coach in this instance, a quarterback's coach, a running back's coach, an O-line coach, when everybody is working in concert together and where he can actually see, which he did see in Philadelphia last year, what it's supposed to operate like. And maybe he'll rise to the occasion, and maybe he'll win this job, and maybe he will show you something. But when I say I'm a big fan of his, I just think that he's been written off before he's ever really had a chance. That's what gets me so riled up. But if you're asking me today, right now, to say, does Joe Flacco win this job? Does Kenny Pickett win this job? I don't honestly know, but I think that they both have a fair shot to do it. That's what I'm really expecting. And that's certainly what I'm hoping for. And I don't feel comfortable because I like both of them so much saying right now who I actually think is winning the job. But I just think that as fans, let's give them a fair shot. Let's just go out there and see, and let's not be caught up in what we've seen the last couple years.
You know, the Browns are so desperate for a quarterback at this point. I think in reality, most fans will give anybody a shot if they show any promise on the field. And if he wins the job, so be it. We'll see. Obviously, it's a lot to unpack what you said there, and certainly he was treated unfairly, or it seems like it was an unfair situation for him.
He was not set up to succeed, let's say that.
It is
and there was a lot done. There was a lot done that not only stunted his development, but literally almost killed his career. Totally detrimental to the growth of a young quarterback. Which comes back to, why throw Sanders and Gabriel in there when they're not ready, when they're not set up to succeed? Otherwise, it's one and done. Otherwise, they'll just be bust too. Sorry.
It is hard to wrap your head around, from our perspective at least, the Steelers being dysfunctional and the Browns being functional. Because that's never really been the case.
They weren't functional last year. The Browns weren't functional last year.
They were not.
So let's not just say it's like an institutional thing. I'm not making a grand statement.
Right.
I'm talking about specific situations. The Steelers' offense under Matt Canada. The Browns' offense under Ken Dorsey. We can talk about a lot of similarities there. And neither is one that I'd want to play in myself.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about the dysfunction with, Kenny Pickett's growth and how they kind of threw him in the fire and all that. And you say, let's bring him to an organization that, runs a good offense. Do you realize that, DTR got that same treatment when he was here?
That's true.
In a lot of ways, you're correct. In a lot of ways, you're right.
Yeah, great point.
I would argue DTR had a much better run game. He had a much better offensive line. And I have a heck of a lot more faith in Kevin Stefanski as a play caller than I do in Matt Canada. So I'll say that. But last year is an entirely different thing. And yeah, we haven't seen this new offense, this Kevin Stefanski, Tommy Rees brain trust. I just right now have a lot more faith in what they can do as opposed to what the Browns did on offense a year ago.
But
and I also feel, I'll also say this, okay? Yeah. As much as I personally really, really like Kevin Stefanski, and I've been on the record saying this, I wish that he was more assertive in what he can do and what he wants to do and with his players. And I feel as if at the end of the season, we saw a little taste of that. And I'm completely paraphrasing, but at the end of the season, I got the sense that he was saying, okay, we tried it your way. Now we're going back to doing it my way. So, and I did like seeing that.
Yeah. So, Aditi, to that point, do you think we see a more evolved Kevin Stefanski this year? I don't think nobody believes the Browns are going to win over 4 or 5 games. And at the same time, well, minus Tyson.
That sort of stuns me. I don't feel that way at all.
Tell them, Aditi.
I really don't.
Come on now.
So, but at the same time, there's a lot of talk that, well, people don't see Kevin being on a hot seat. How do you assess it? Because it does seem like Kevin is moving different than he's moved in years past. Do you think this is the year that we see a different Kevin Stefanski, a more evolved Kevin Stefanski as a head coach?
I mean, I hope. I think that we all need to evolve. We all need to grow. We all need to find the next step. You know, you can't stay the same forever, no matter what it is you do in life. And so, you know what? It's funny, I had a conversation with a player on the Browns last year at length about Kevin Stefanski, and the player, just like me, personally really, really likes Kevin Stefanski, and we both kind of came to the same conclusion, which is, if you're going to go down swinging. Go down doing it your way. And so I hope that that's how Kevin Stefanski feels right now. You know, you talk about this proverbial hot seat, and it's such a funny thing. It's so easy for us in this position, right? You signed me to a 5-year, $50 million contract. I don't care. You want to fire me in 2 years? Fine. I'm still collecting my $50 million. That's how you should coach. You should not coach afraid. You should not coach about pleasing players. You should not coach being afraid to hurt somebody's feelings. But time and time again, we see coaches coaching to try to hold on to their jobs. And I look at Kevin Stefanski, and again, it's so easy for me to say this because I'm on the outside. I'm not in his shoes. But if they fire me, I'm a 2-time coach of the year. I'm getting another job just like this. And until I get that job, I'm still getting paid. So you would hope that he would coach with that confidence, that swagger, and do it the way he wants to do it and not worry about appeasing players. You know, I was, Adam, you were in New York when I was in New York. I was just watching something. I don't know if it was an America's game or it was a Michael Strahan thing, but it was all about Michael Strahan and Tom Coughlin and how much conflict they had and how much they butted heads and how much Michael Strahan hated Tom Coughlin because Tom Coughlin wouldn't bend to him, and how at the end, Michael Strahan would have run through 20 walls of fire for Tom Coughlin, and how he credits Tom Coughlin with everything of who he has become. And Tom Coughlin was never afraid of him. He wasn't afraid of Eli. He wasn't afraid of Strahan. He wasn't afraid of OC. We don't see that in head coaches as much today. And it's a shame. It's a shame. It really is.
Yeah, and the ones who do or aren't afraid have success. And that's been one of Kevin Stefanski's biggest problems. He handled Watson poorly. He handled giving Ken Dorsey the play calling. The way that happened was poor. And to Tyvus's point, like the way he handled DTR was poor. The first time DTR played 2 years ago, he didn't even know he was going to play. And part of that was because...
But that was on Watson. Last year, there was
but part of that is because Stefanski allowed that from Watson to do whatever he wanted.
Look, I'm with you. Yeah. This is where I am certainly very old school. I would handle Myles Garrett differently, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So, whatever. Kevin Stefanski is much more level and cool-headed than I am. I'd probably be an emotional mess on the sideline as well. So that wouldn't serve me well.
I'd be nice to Tom.
Aditi, I actually looked at last year.
I'd probably be a little bit more Nick Sirianni. I don't know that I'd yell at fans, but
all right,
a little more hot-headed.
He saved his head, and then they never lost another game.
Yeah, that's true.
when you look at Kevin last year, I often described it as since Kevin's been the head coach, it's been a lot of push and pull about what he should do, what he shouldn't do, and he always he just took it. He took the fall for it all. And I felt like last year was a situation where he got kind of petty, where he was like, okay, y'all don't want me to call plays? Let me show y'all what it looked like when I ain't calling the plays. And we seen this disaster. And I think now what it did ultimately was give him more credibility. Like, okay, it ain't him. So I think, do you think that could be it, or am I just reaching?
I don't know that it was pettiness. I think it was out of his hands, and what could he do? But again, this is where I would say, like, if you're going to go down your way. Go down swinging. Don't just accede that power, that role, that, Kevin Stefanski from the very beginning has called plays because he believes in the play caller that he is, and because he enjoys the process of it. He does love doing it. I'm eager to see. He's still a very young man, let's be honest. And he's still very young into his head coaching career. And I feel like he's already lived 6 lives in his coaching career, quite frankly. Let's see who he is this season. I'm excited to hear that you guys who are out at practice are seeing a different sense from him, a different demeanor from him. I'll be out there in a few weeks, and then I'll have a better sense of that for sure. But every team takes something different too. Let's not forget that. Some teams need more screaming and yelling than others do. Some teams need more fire. Some teams need more discipline. I don't know. But again, just like in the Kenny Pickett situation, Kevin Stefanski has not been in an easy situation at all the entirety of his tenure year, going back to that first year, which was the COVID year. Then the Baker-Odell situation, Baker and the injuries and how he was managing all of that. Then Deshaun, I don't know. I keep saying I don't know, but that's mostly because it feels a little bit unfair to sit here and say he should definitely be this. I think the evolution is figuring out what your team needs and being that.
So we've been talking about nice guys and the job that they've done. I think Andrew Berry is a very nice guy. I a lot of respect for Andrew Berry, the person. What do you think of the job that he has done as the Browns general manager throughout his tenure? Because I think now going into year 5, I think we got enough out there to really properly assess it. How do you assess his tenure as the Browns GM?
I mean, he's won more playoff games than the GM in Pittsburgh, so there's that. I think that, yeah, like he also, I think, has been hamstrung by a few things, and I think we should see how this year plays out a bit. It's so hard because that Watson contract affects everything, and I firmly believe that was not at all a solo decision on his part, or a decision on his part at all. And that colors everything to some degree. Don't you feel?
We can't. But Aditi, listen, overall they still have a losing. I know it's better than it was, but they still have a losing record during their 5 years together. And they can't just get the owner sucks, we know it, but he spends a lot of money.
I'm not saying that.
That's what I said. I'm right there with you, Aditi. He pays well.
Those are your words, okay? Please don't say we when it's your words.
I say the owner sucks, but he spends a lot of money. I can't give the owner and the coach a pass every year they have a bad year. Just because of the fraudulent 2-time Coach of the Year awards, let's be honest. It's not a Coach of the Year award. It's we had a surprising season award.
Yeah, I don't think that's very fair. You know what?
He's a better coach than Andy Reid.
I think that both Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are authentic people. I don't think that either of them lie. Okay, so whatever we sit here and we say, I do believe that both are sincere. And while publicly what they are compelled to say is not necessarily always
Well, they
the
lie in press
100%
conferences.
Didi is telling you without telling you.
Right,
Read
but I
between the
think that
damn
in a
lines.
one-on-one
Like-
situation, I think with their players, they don't lie to their players.
Sure.
And I think that's a really important piece here.
Okay.
I want to ask you about Kevin.
I got you.
I want to ask you about Kevin Stefanski communication with quarterbacks. Do you think that there is some slight, what's the word I'm looking for? Confusion between that communication, because Kevin will always preach about how he just despises turnovers, and then we look at all the quarterback that he's coached since being a Brown, all of them turn the ball over at a pretty decent clip. How do you think they fix that communication?
I think that was a big piece of why they liked Pickett, because they expected him to take care of the ball and because he has some deceiving athleticism to him. I think that I don't know that that's as much about communication. I can't say anymore, but just from production meetings that we've had where we get to have actual sincere conversation about things that have gone wrong, it feels a little bit unfair to me to blame turnovers on the play caller. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
Leave it at that. All right, I won't push you on it.
Yeah, I ain't gonna push her on too much
Yeah.
either. So I guess I'll ask this question: If Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski are both authentic people, I guess Paul DePodesta is that the issue?
Oh,
like,
man.
Oh my gosh, you guys are killing me. Do you know that my main employer is CBS? But in the preseason, I have a side gig, and I am the Browns preseason sideline reporter. And guys, I love that gig. It's so fun.
Okay,
because
I
the
want
Browns do
everything else about
preseason games. The Browns do preseason games better than anybody else in the
All right,
league.
I got a different
They
question.
allow us to have fun. They let us interview players during those games. We tell exciting stories because when it's the third quarter of the third preseason game and some poor running back who's going to be working at 7-Eleven next week is running the ball, fans don't care what happens on 3rd and 3. They want to know about the team that is going to start the season. And the Browns let us do that. So please stop putting that job at risk.
All right, I
or
got a better
can't
question
ever
for you.
Come on with you
So
again.
later on in the show, we are doing a topic where we're talking about jersey rankings. You love your Browns job. Where do you rank the Cleveland Browns jerseys amongst the 32 teams in the NFL?
Oh my goodness, this is another one. You know what? I've always wondered why like grown men wear other grown men's names on their back. Like I get that it's like such big business and so necessary, but I've never owned somebody else's jersey in my life. I've only had my own jerseys. Although I do have a very funny jersey story for you. So my son, whose 10th birthday is today,
Happy birthday.
he is a
Happy birthday.
thank
birthday,
you.
Nico.
He is a die-hard Bills fan. I think, as most of you know, for 8 years, since he was 2 years old. But his father is a Steelers season ticket holder, and he has gotten very sick of Nico wearing his Josh Allen jersey to Steelers games. So 2 years ago, he insisted that Nico get a Steelers jersey, and Nico chose Kenny Pickett. The ensuing offseason, Kenny Pickett was traded. So last year, Nico needed a new Steelers jersey for these games. And after interviewing me at length about the 6 that he was considering, he chose Minkah Fitzpatrick. In the ensuing offseason, Fitzpatrick was traded.
Oh, wow.
So I said, we are never buying a Steelers jersey again.
Yeah.
Because if
Good
you
call.
buy a jersey, it should last for more than 1 year. So now my son has decided that he would like a James Harrison jersey because James Harrison is done playing. And yet, I just feel like the whole jersey thing is a little... Do you know how expensive jerseys are?
Well,
Do you know
you
how much
crazy
they cost?
expensive.
You got to get. I have some jerseys, but all of my jerseys are players that are retired. Or it's Giannis. It's Giannis. So yeah.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't wear jerseys really, but for the most part. But I don't have a problem with anybody doing
So
it.
I got a Bernie Kosar and I
I
got
don't
a
have a
Jim Brown
problem.
jersey.
A Jim Brown and a who?
Bernie Kosar.
Okay. I don't, but anyway, my whole reason in saying this is that I've never like sat here and actually assessed the uniforms to say which uniform is my favorite uniform in the NFL, and it feels like everybody's wearing like 6 different uniforms this year, aren't they?
Yeah.
There's so many. So how
That's
do you
true.
even...
There's no
That's true,
jersey
but
like that Cleveland
I'm like
Browns.
you, but a lot of people are into the jerseys and like which one's cooler than the other.
That 1942 is something special.
So we're gonna have to break it down.
Is
All
it
right,
42
Aditi,
or
we put you in a
49?
tricky spot on some questions.
Guys,
You survived.
Sorry.
You made it through. You're gonna keep your paycheck.
we'll see if I survived. I might be
Yeah.
getting a call from the Browns in 3 minutes to say,
Nah,
sorry,
you didn't
we're
say
going
anything.
with somebody else now.
No, you didn't say
really
anything.
that was that
out-
controversial.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, I say all the
It's so
crazy
bad.
stuff. Don't worry about it. You know, it's gonna get me
All
fired
right.
for
Well,
years.
hopefully we get back to doing this regularly. It's
All
good
right.
to see all of you.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.